Alright, so we are almost ready. Okay, we are almost ready. We are just going to print our students which are available in the database. We are going to print those students by fetching it from the database. We'll be printing it just right here in our JSP page. And you know what? We are almost done. We are so close. Right now, let's do that. Okay, let's print it. And you know what? This is going to be 12 o'clock in the night, and I just want to complete it. Then only I can go to sleep. Okay, I just want to complete this portion of the program. I want to see the data just right here in this particular page, and after that only I'll get sleep. Okay, then tomorrow morning I'll continue from there. But for you, you can watch it in one shot if you want. Okay, but first of all, let's make my dream true. I want the data here. Okay, in this page, I want to see those student data. So let's see. This page is called by my controller. This is my controller. So in my controller, in my student controller, I have a method. And now this method is obviously going to be mapped to this. Obviously, whenever we'll hit this URL, this particular method will be called. And obviously, here we are getting the student list. This list we are getting by doing a DAO call, and this list we are sending it to our view. So how we are sending it to our view? So this is our view. To this view we are sending a model, and this model, obviously this model will be automatically, or it is going to be automatically available in the view. This is my view. So right now with this model, I'm adding the data here. So there is an attribute called students. With this attribute, I'm adding the student list, which is actually carrying my data. So right now I'm sending this data. This data is coming from my DAO. If you can see student DAO dot load student, here only I have written the implementation just right now inside my DAO method. You can see that right now I'm in my student DAO IMPL, and here only this method I'm calling inside my controller. So my controller will get the data from this particular method, and here only I'm doing some query, and this query is basically I'm making over this SQL, which is select star from students. So obviously it is going to get me all the data, and it is going to return me a list of student. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get here in my controller. So if I'll go back, hey, I want to go back. Why I'm not going back? Go back. Well, I'm inside my controller right now. Okay, so right now here inside my controller, so this is the method I want to execute, and obviously I want to see my data just right here. But before I print my data here, if I'll go to this particular JSP page, I am not actually printing my data there right now. I am not doing anything. Obviously this is just a comment. I'm not doing anything. Before I paste the data just right here, what I want, let me go back to my controller. This is my controller. Let me go back right here. Whatever the data I'm getting from my database, obviously here I'm making a DAO call in this line, isn't it? See this line? I'm making a DAO call here. So right here, what I want, before I do something, I want to print those data. Let's see whether I'm getting the data just right here or not. If I'll be getting the data just right here, I want to print it. So I'll say student temp student, and I want to print the I want to iterate over this particular list. Whatever this list I'll be getting from my DB, and right here I'm just going to print this out, the temp student. Okay, whatever the student this particular method is going to return me, this particular DB method is going to return me, I'm just going to iterate over that particular list, and I'm going to print all my student. Okay, so let's see if I'll do Control-Shift-F, it is going to format the code. So I just want to see whenever I'll hit this URL, obviously this for loop will run, and I want to see that whether I'm able to print my students just right here or not. Okay, so now let me do Control S, and let me go there, and let me basically close all the files. Yeah, there is some problem here. Why it is giving me an warning? This is basically an error. It is telling me to set a result set extractor. Why is that? I am just giving a row mapper. There should not be a problem. All right. Okay, so that was basically an Eclipse problem. So I closed my Eclipse and I opened my Eclipse again, and the error is gone. Wow, crazy. Okay, so like we have just created everything. We can just close everything right now. I don't want to open a lot of file, and I don't want to confuse you guys. I can close everything. And as I said, I have closed my Eclipse and I open it again. So I want to make sure to deploy this particular project, and let me do finish it, and let's see whether our project or whether our code is working fine or not, and are we going to get the data in our console. Right now here I want to print the data. Why? Because if you're going to see inside the controllers, right here inside this controller method, which is handled by /showStudent. Here basically I'm trying to log the data, right? I'm trying to log the temp student just right here. Basically I'm trying to loop over the student list. Okay, so let me see whether this is working or not. And obviously if the data is here and this data I'm fetching it from my load student, and if I'm having my data here, and if I'm able to log the data into the console, then obviously I'm sending the same data to my model, and obviously using this model attribute just right here inside this particular page, I can loop over this particular model attribute. And also if I'll go to this particular page using this model attribute called students, right here in this particular page using this attribute, again I can loop over just right here and I can print the data. But before that, as I said, let me see whether I'm able to print the data just right here, whether I'm able to iterate over the student list, which is this one just right here inside this controller method. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, I can copy the student show student URL. I'll go back to there. I'll do Control V and get ready for error. Boom. We get a, what do we get? We should be getting a null pointer exception. Why is that? Why we're getting null pointer exception? Okay, let me open up my controller, let me make it full screen, and let me read the issue. Okay, we're getting a null pointer exception, okay, whenever we are hitting that URL. So as you can see, we are not getting any web page. So whenever we basically hit this URL, so student, this URL, we should be getting the student list, but we are not getting it. We're getting an error page. So the reason is this. Okay, let's read this issue. So cannot invoke org.spring framework JDBC core JdbcTemplate query. Okay, the query cannot be invoked. That means this guy just right here, if I'll go to my controller, if I'll go to my load student, here I have written the query. Okay, this query cannot be invoked. Why it cannot be invoked? Let's see that. Okay, so this cannot be invoked because this .jdbctemplate is null. Okay, so it is saying this .jdbctemplate is null. So what do you mean by that? So obviously this query we are iterating, we are operating this query over this JDBC template. The JDBC template is providing us a handy method just right here, just like query, which is going to help us to query the database. But hold on, we are obviously querying over a JDBC template object, and this JDBC template object is obviously null. We have not initialized it yet, and that's why we are getting a null pointer exception. So we have to do the configuration of the JDBC template. We have to create the object of new JDBC template. Okay, we have to create the object of this, and then only we can perform the query. But hold on. So how to basically create the object? How to basically create the object of JDBC template? That should be the question. How we can create the JDBC template object? You should say, Avilash, just create it just like this, the way you did. But hold on, we are using Spring. And I already told you, whenever basically we need to create the JDBC template object, we should use this constructor. Okay, why? Because here, if we'll use this constructor, we can also provide a data source. So when we need to initialize the JDBC template object, we have to make sure that we need to pass a data source object to the JdbcTemplate constructor. Why we do need to pass the data source object? Because the data source is going to help us to connect to the database. So the JdbcTemplate is not only going to help us by providing some handy methods just like query, which is going to help me to obviously fire a select query. Obviously, whenever I'm firing the select query, it is going to get me the result, and all those code is written by this query method, and this query is a method of JdbcTemplate. So JdbcTemplate is providing me some utility methods just like query, which is a good thing. Okay, so that's why I'm using JdbcTemplate. And also to perform this query, okay, if I'm trying to do select star from student in my database, before I do that, my app need to connect to the database. So for the connection, to connect to the database, I need a connection object. So that thing this data source is going to do, I have already told you. So the JdbcTemplate is not only going to provide me some handy utility methods, it is also going to help me to connect to the DB. Okay, so to connect to the DB, we will be needing to configure the data source as well. Okay, so we can hardcode this thing just right here inside this file. But as I said, why should we hardcode? Because we are using Spring and we don't want to hardcode the things just right here, isn't it? So what I will do, I'll stop my application. I will try to create the JdbcTemplate bean inside my configuration file. So I'll go to my com.seleniumexpress.sm.config folder. I'll go to my configuration file, and here I'll be creating a bean for JdbcTemplate. Okay, so I'll be creating a bean for JdbcTemplate. So this is the method I'll be creating, which will return me a JdbcTemplate object. So I'll say JdbcTemplate. JdbcTemplate. Where you are, JdbcTemplate? Come quick, because it's getting late. I want to sleep. JdbcTemplate and JdbcTemplate. Where is that? JdbcTemplate is equal to new JdbcTemplate. There you go, man. We get this. But hold on, I don't want to use the default constructor, because while I'll be initializing the JdbcTemplate, I need to pass in the data source. Okay, so I need to tell my JdbcTemplate that, hey, this is my database information. Use this database information to connect to my database. I need to pass in that information just right here. And once I do that, I can able to return this JdbcTemplate object, copy that, paste it here. And obviously I will make it a bean. So I'll say add bean, and there you go. Right, so my bean is ready right now. My JdbcTemplate bean is ready. So now this JdbcTemplate object will be created by Spring, and once it is created, I can simply in the DAO IMPL, I don't need to hardcode the objects just right here. I can simply say add AutoWare, and there you go, it's done. Right now, this query, whenever it is going to perform over the JdbcTemplate, obviously this JdbcTemplate will be looked inside the configuration file, because I have said here AutoWare. So whenever Spring will initialize, when my dispatcher servlet will initialize, it is going to look inside the configuration file. And obviously I have mentioned a bean here, so it is going to execute this particular method, and obviously inside this method I am creating a JdbcTemplate object and also returning that. But hold on, my job is not yet done, because my JdbcTemplate will be needing a data source. So I also need to create a data source bean. So I'll say get data source, or I can create a method called data source, and this data source method is going to return me a data source. So let me get some space here, and I'll say I need a data source. So data source is going to be an interface, and make sure this data source is right here is an interface, right? If I hover over here, this is an interface. I already told you, right? So this data source, if you remember, if I'll go here to my data source, obviously this is an interface provided by Oracle, and obviously this particular data source has a couple of methods called getConnection and getConnection, where we can pass username and password for our DB, and it is going to give us the connection object. So right now, what we need to do, as I told you, this data source is an interface. So we should have some kind of implementation class. We should have some kind of vendor who is going to provide the implementation for the data source, because as a programmer, I don't need to write right now the implementation for the data source. Obviously, there should be other developers who had spent a lot of time creating a class for us, which is going to be the implementation of this data source interface. And obviously I told you about that particular class. If you remember that, if I hit Command T here, you can see the hierarchy, and this is that class, driver manager data source. And look from where this class is coming from. This class is coming from org, the Spring framework, the JDBC, the data source. So it's coming from the Spring framework package. So Spring developers has created this driver manager data source class for us. Okay, so this class can help us to connect to the database. So let's use that. Okay, I'll close it. So right now this object cannot be created. I just cannot say return new data source. I cannot say that because data source is a interface, right? So what I need to do, I need to go for driver manager data source. This is the implementation of the data source class. So data source, I can give a reference and equal to, new driver manager data source. There you go. Okay, so right now the driver manager data source object got created. I can return the data source just right here. Now with this data source right now, I'm going to say what are my DB information. So the data source object I can simply return here, and to this data source object I can set few DB information. So set the DB info to the data source object. Okay, so I'll say data source dot set username, and my username is going to be root, and obviously data source dot set password, and my DB password is Abhilash, and obviously I'll say data source dot set URL. Basically I need to tell my data source to this guy that which database or which schema I want to connect. So right now let's look here which schema I'm trying to connect. I need to go to the MySQL workbench, and obviously I want to connect to this schema. The schema name is Selenium Express. So inside Selenium Express I got the table name is called student, and where basically I have this data, right? So basically I need to connect to this schema, and to connect that, first of all I need to get the connection URL. So for a shortcut I will copy this JDBC connection string, copy that, go back to your Java application. Where is that? Hey, where is my Java application? Okay, here is that. So right now the URL I need to provide just right here, and I'll do Control V. This is going to be my URL, and I need to provide my schema name just right here. My schema name is Selenium Express. Okay, so this is my schema. So my schema, if you see, where is that? DB. If I'll go here, if I'll go to schemas, this is my schema name. Okay, and this is what I need to basically do there. And if I'll go back to my Eclipse again, so right now this is the schema I want to connect, and this is my URL. So right now whenever Spring is going to connect to my URL, maybe it is going to complain because I am not providing any security certificate or SSL certificate. So I need to say Spring, hey, whenever you are trying to connect to this particular URL, just try to don't use any certification for this, don't use any SSL for this. So use SSL equal to false. I don't want to connect to you through a SSL certificate. So this is just for testing. So whenever you are connecting to my database through this URL by using this password and by using this username, whenever you are doing this, don't use the certificate. That's why I'm writing use SSL equal to false, and that's it. And also I need to say datasource dot set driver class name. I want to set the driver class name. Obviously I'm using MySQL here. I also have MySQL connector in my pom.xml file, so I can hit command shift T and I can look for the driver class. And I have already told you during your initial course that we have two driver here, maybe three drivers here, but these are the two driver. If you see, they are coming from MySQL. See here, M2 repository. From MySQL it is coming, right? From MySQL connector, this particular driver is coming. And from this driver also coming from MySQL connector. So which one to use? So I told you already in my Spring JDBC course, we will be using this one. Why? Because this is the latest one and this is the legacy one. And MySQL is suggesting to use this one, right? This driver. This is our new driver, okay? So I'll do right click, copy qualified name. I will close it and I will paste my driver class name is this com.mysql.jdbc.driver, and this is it. So now my data source is created. My data source is ready. Let me make this method public, and also let me make this method as public. So right now my data source is ready. My data source is returning a data source. Obviously I'm creating driver manager data source object and I'm returning this object just right here. So now this data source, basically I'll copy this and my JDBC template here inside this, I'll be doing a copy paste here. And there you go. So right now my definition fulfills, right? When JDBC template object will be creating, we need the data source. Okay, so that's why while creating the JDBC template object, the JDBC template will look for a data source. You can see the constructor, it is needing a data source. So I have created a method for data source just right here, and there we go. Here is my configuration. That's done. And obviously I'll make it a bean. I want Spring to call this particular method, and obviously whenever Spring will call this method automatically, obviously I'm creating the data source and doing all sort of configuration. So all these things will happen automatically because I have a add bean just right here. So during the boot up, Spring will call this particular data source method. Okay, so now the data source method will be called. So here JDBC template will get the data source. So JDBC template object will be created and will be returned just right here. So it will be there inside the IOC or inside the Spring container. So if we'll go to the DAO IMPL right now, that particular object will be injected. Whatever the object we are creating there, that object will be injected just right here. Okay, so right now I think all my configurations are done. So if I'll go to the student controller right now, here basically I'm trying to loop over the student list, isn't it? The student list I'm trying to loop over just right here. So now I feel I will get all my students just right here. I'll be looping over the student list because this student list is coming from the DAO IMPL. And here only, if you remember, I'm trying to doing a query, and this query I'm doing it over this SQL select star from students, and I'm returning this list of students. So hopefully right now the things are going to work fine for me. So I'll do what? I'll go to the internal server error. This is the error we used to get previously. So now I will go back to, where? To my server. I'll start my server and let's do it, man. Let's hit that. Let's hit that URL and let's see whether, oh, still I'm getting an issue. Which is that issue? So let's see that. Unsatisfied dependency exception. We have a unsatisfied dependency. Why is that? So it is saying what right now? Again, we are getting an exception, and it is saying error creating the bean per student DAO IMPL. Okay, so unsatisfied dependency expressed through JDBC template. Okay, so right now the JDBC template, cannot be initialized. So student DAO IMPL, here the bean is not getting created for student DAO IMPL. Why student DAO IMPL bean is not getting created? If we will go to student DAO IMPL, it is saying this bean is not getting created. Why? Because we already have a at repository. So when Spring is trying to create the bean for the student DAO IMPL, it is having a problem because this JDBC template is not a, because see, so when Spring basically creates the object, obviously this class is having at repository, so Spring will create the object for this, but it will not only create the object, it will also going to inject the dependency. So we have a dependency here, the dependency name is JdbcTemplate. So maybe it is not able to inject the dependency, so maybe the object is not getting created for JdbcTemplate. Maybe we have done some configuration mistake, but let's read the error. So it is saying unsatisfied dependency expressed through the field called JdbcTemplate, nested exception, no such bean definition, no qualifying bean for JdbcTemplate available. All right, so we are having a problem. So the problem here is the JdbcTemplate bean is not able to be created, isn't it? So I can read it again. Unsatisfied dependency. We have an unsatisfied dependency inside the class called student DAO IMPL, and that is because of the field JdbcTemplate. Let's go and do some inquiry for this field again. JdbcTemplate. So where you are, JdbcTemplate. So this is the JdbcTemplate where we are defining it. Let me make it private. That won't make any difference, but anyhow, let me make it private because any field we are declaring inside our class, the variable should be private. But what is the problem? What is the problem right now? Let's see the problem right now. I want to go to the configuration file first. So JdbcTemplate, we are trying to create the JdbcTemplate object. So the data source we are calling here. So here we are calling drivermanagerdatasource. We are creating the object for that. We are setting the username, the password. This is my URL, and this is my driver class name, and we are returning the data source, which is pretty perfect. Now, why the bean is not getting created? You should have created the bean. Can I see the error message again for more information? So it is saying no qualifying bean for JdbcTemplate. Okay, but tell me the error. Tell me more about the error. Can you please do that? So no qualifying bean, no qualifying bean. Okay, I understand that. So any other information can I get? Okay, let me see one more thing. Let me stop my server. Let me stop this. The next thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to do right click, run as Maven Install. Let me build my project again. So it will be creating a fresh var for me. So the var should be created right now. Student management 001 snapshot.var. Once the var is created, I'll be doing one more thing. I'll go to my server and I'll try to clean my server. Okay, I'll just try to do a clean. I'll do okay. So, and one more thing I'll be doing, I'll be clean the Tomcat work directory as well. So I feel there is something fishy here with the Tomcat and this particular project. So let me redeploy it again and let me try to see whether I'm getting the problem here or not this time. Okay, so obviously there should be a 404 because with the root URL, we have not configured anything yet. But right now I need to go to my controller and I need to copy this URL again. Let me go back to the new page here and Control V here to enter. Oh, there you go. We get everything. We get our data, right? There are 4 student object here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 student object. If you remember, if you'll go back to your DB, where is your DB? If you'll go to your DB, sorry, not Skype, I'm sorry. If you'll go to your DB, just right here, we have 4 records, isn't it? We are getting those records, these 4 records, we are able to log it right now on our screen. So let me go to Eclipse. So these are the 4 records we are able to log and there is no 404 error just right here, isn't it? So if you go to my previous window that we have created, let me hit this URL again right now and boom, there you go. There is no error this time. So maybe there was some Eclipse issue, but right now we are done. So basically the point is, if I'm going to clear the console, if I'll come back here, if I'm going to hit the URL, you can see as soon as I'm hitting the URL, obviously I'm getting these 4 students back. And obviously in my with JSP page, I'm not printing anything, so the data are not here. But inside my controller, I'm trying to, doing a for loop just right here. That's why, I'm able to print the temp student, and this temp student are the student's data. But inside the student, we do not have any toString. Okay, that's why we are getting the object just like a hash code. We're just getting the address of the student, but we don't want to get the address. We want to get the content, and to get the content, it's pretty easy. We have to generate the toString. Okay, so let me do generate here. Okay, it is going to generate the toString for me. Let me do Command S. Let me wait till my server reload the changes. Come on, man, do it quick. Illegal state exception. Okay, forget about this. This is for a different cause. I'll be telling you how to fix this. But anyhow, my reloading has been completed, and ignore this error for now. So let me go to my page right now. Let me do enter, and boom, we get our data just right here. ID is 1, name is Sudhir, mobile is this, country is India. ID is 2, Priya, mobile and country. ID 3, Justin. ID 4 is Jasmine. Are these the same record that we have in our DB? Of course, yes. Let me get one more record here. Let me insert one more record here. Let me say 5, and let me say Anu. Let me provide some mobile number just right here, and also let me say US, and let me say apply, and apply just right here, and let me do close. Okay, right now let me go there to my DB. Right now, just see here, we used to have 4 records. Right now let me clear the console, and let me enter this particular URL again, and this time we are getting 5 records. That the number 5 one is Anu. So we are actually fetching the data from our database, and right now this particular URL that we are having, so student, this is the URL we are having inside our controller, isn't it? So where is our controller? If I'll go to my controller is here. So now because of the for loop, I'm able to print the data. But well, I don't have to print this student list. This student list is obviously this one, right? I don't need to print it in my console. I want to show it in the web page. In the web page right now, you can see there is no data. I want to show it the data just right here. So obviously, if I'll go to my controller, this data, I'm sending it to my view through a model. So obviously in my model right now, this data student list will be available as a model attribute called student. So I'll be copying this. I'll be going to my JSP page. Where is my JSP page? So my JSP page should be inside source, main, web app, webnf, view, just right here. And here what I'm going to do, my model attribute is obviously student. This is the one I'm sending from the backend. And right now let's print this. So open and close the curly brace, give it a $, and print the model attribute that you are sending, okay, from your backend. And this is not an error. Close the page, open it again, and boom, the error is gone. Make sure this students is basically the model that you are sending from your controller. So from your controller, this students is your model attribute, and this is actually holding the data. Right now, your JSP has been modified. Let me go here. Let me fire this URL again. And let me see here. Okay, student data coming soon. Still, we are not able to see the data. Maybe we can do one more thing in our JSP right now. Can I do is EL ignored and make it false? Let me do Control S. Now let me try to hit this URL again, and boom, this time we are getting all our data in the web page. So we're getting student. There is a long student array. Obviously this is a list, the complete list it is printing, and 1 Sudhir mobile, and the country is India. 2 Priya mobile number is this, country is US. 3 Justin mobile number is this, country is this one. And just like we are trying to print the entire student array just right here, now I can see the data in my web page, and this is what I wanted. I want to see the data in my web page, and I'm able to see that. For right now, you can go to the controller and you can say please delete this particular for loop, because in the log I don't want to print any data. That's okay. This is just for testing purpose. Now I'm getting the data right now. The main intention just right here to get the data from the DB. So right now we are making a DAO call from the load student is basically, getting us the data, and it is returning us the data. Now if I'll go back, this data, I'm sending it to my view through a model attribute called students, which is actually holding the actual data pasted by the load students method, and it is sending and making the data available right here on my JSP page, whatever I'm trying to display just right here. Okay, but tomorrow, I'll wake up in the morning tomorrow and I will again come live, not live, I'm actually recording these videos. So obviously, I'll do what? Tomorrow I'll try to make this particular page design. I'll try to design this particular page and we'll make the data look better. So time to sleep. It's already 12:34. I'm feeling sleepy. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And till then, you can do the practice and let me know in the comment section if it is working for you. Okay? See you.